Oh, Crispy, again with you on a stream. That's always fun.
Ben, good to see you again. And Dev Huey, how the heck are you?
Dev Huey, for the
Yeah,
first
hi Crispy,
time.
hi Ben. First time on a stream with you, so it's great to join such a esteemed data analyst, HEX analyst.
Yeah, 100%,
So nice.
man. Yeah, I know everybody probably doesn't know everything we've been involved in between the three of us, but a lot. But hey, what are you guys thinking? Where's HEX going? Is there a chance? Do we have a chance?
Who you want to start, or should I go with my bullish feelings?
Do your bullish feelings. Hey, listen, I'll tell you. I'll start off bullish for you. Right today, on what we call the golden ratio multiplier, Pulse flashed a green buy signal today. Very good. That makes me super bullish. And of course, HEX is tied directly to Pulse. So.
Yep. Oh, that is really nice. The thing is, I'm always so positive, so I feel like I'm always bullish. And I'm always checking the numbers. So if people don't know me, I'm doing a lot of HEX statistics on Twitter, doing monthly and quarterly reports like consistently. And I try to make it concise for everybody to understand of what is actually happening. And when I see the data, I usually feel really confident about, like HEX and where we're going, because there's always so much activity. It's never looking like it dies out or anything like it. And by the sheer numbers where we at as a community, and how, let's say, low the prices are, and the user market cap, I feel like that these levels are kind of sustainable for a long time. So even if there's not big enough demand coming out, so I think that the community itself can, just kickstart from here. I really don't think that. Also, the charts look like that they kind of stabilized, like, let's say, over a year, and I think that we're just consistently here as a community, and we are just not going away. We have some Hexicans who sometimes go away, take a couple of days off, and then they come back. We're just here, and we're coming back. I think there is no price level where I would quit, or Crispy, you would quit, or Huey, I don't think that you are not making your data analysis anymore, right?
Yeah, we're increasing our data analysis and turning on more supercomputers to crunch all the numbers. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's also definitely very, very much fun, especially to look into, and analyze HEX, because it's like the cryptocurrency which you can really go into a lot of different statistics because you have all the data on chain. And
days and days and days of it. Yep.
And Huey, I wanted to ask you, how did you like get into like, oh, I would like to make HEX analytics? What inspired you, or what motivated you to do that?
What inspired me was the HEX audit, which was done by Hexagon a few years ago and appeared in the Highest of Stakes documentary movie. And that seemed to be done by a manual exercise using Excel, and then manually going through and looking for all of these OA addresses to see how many are OA and non-OA. This kind of inspired me. I like Python. Let's learn some blockchain analysis. And then I started from there. And I've gone through many iterations of doing it, a very bad way, like saving the data to CSV files. And then I moved to saving it to a database, and now I'm using Databricks Spark Computing, so a lot more power on the back end now. So I'll apologize in advance. I've been moving house for the last 2 weeks, so I haven't been on top of the recent data. So definitely phoning this one in. But I have a question for you two. Like what metrics or KPIs have you been watching, you know, the last couple of weeks or months, or what do you think is interesting to keep an eye on?
Number one right now for me, because a lot of other things are static, is the amount of LP available in the market.
That's an interesting one. Like, because I'm definitely looking a lot on user circulating supply and yields overall and which direction they're shifting, because of the recent moves of the OA staking and the yield shifting away. And I'm very curious of how, you know, how it just unfolds. Yeah, so that is quite interesting for me. So I'm not looking that much on trading patterns or anything like that, because I'm like, that's just short term, kind of like trying to analyze in which direction it goes. Because the big trading patterns are looking very great, especially, you know, I think for HEX. Like having that monthly MACD looking great, and everything, and PHEX just doesn't have that long of a data history, or you just take the data history of HEX and combine it with PHEX. And I'm still working on a lot of crunching numbers to actually get all the HEX pools together and analyze them together. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. So there's not a KPI that I'm like trying to check all the time. I'm just trying to figure out a way how to crunch all of those numbers together so that at the end I can analyze it.
And what inspired you guys to start doing analytics? Because I know it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of money to set up all this servers. So what inspired you? Because I think we've inspired each other. Maybe from this stream today will even inspire, you know, a new wave of analytics tools.
I mean, it comes like that goes even back to like Bitcoin days. I found it like Bitcoin inspired me to learn programming in general, because I was kind of like an economics guy, and I knew a lot of data things, but I wasn't like engineering. And then when Bitcoin was there, I'm like, oh, you can like program money in a way. And that's when I started kind of learning programming by scratch. And in HEX, sorry for the noise. Yeah, in HEX, you just have like this incredible system, which is like, you know, it has a yield. Basically, it's almost like an interest rate, a global interest rate, which is shifting based on the market. And that is just so fascinating. And I wanted to track it from the beginning. I even had like a Telegram group on day one when HEX launched. And I started posting HEX data into the Telegram group, but I manually like put the data together into an Excel sheet, and I was tracking it like day by day and just posting like every day an update. And then some other websites came along which automated so many things, and I was like, all right, other guys are doing it, so I don't have to manually crunch numbers and just figure out better ways and find better ways to actually automatize things. And then it took me some years to get where I am, but I consistently just kept on going and tried to improve incrementally. Hi, Tails.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
Hi, Tails. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
We're talking about what inspired us, the three of us, to do like analytics for HEX and how we got into it.
All right, you guys, because all three of you guys always have all the charts and all the data and stuff. So you guys are the ones I actually follow quite a bit and actually learn a lot, because I don't actually do that type of stuff, but I take all the information, I analyze my own thoughts with it, so it helps quite a bit.
That's cool. So yeah, usually you don't look at so many data things, but in HEX you like to, if I understand.
Yeah,
correctly.
yeah, I like to look at it, like T-share rate, amount of stakes going out for what duration of lengths, and all the various things. But I find quite a bit of what I find fascinating right now is after the OA did all its stakes, it kind of just reset the whole system, and now it's kind of causing us to redial everything in. And Crispy Man's been pretty good at keeping up and giving us good information with that. So
that's true.
Yeah, it's pretty cool how the OA is such a stabilizing force.
Yeah, the OA addresses have kind of identified themselves now, because I think there was a mystery of how many there were. Like, we have the ones that are directly connected to the OA, like daughter addresses. And then you have these other OA addresses that I think might come from the ETH adoption amplifier phase, who are not directly linked, but they're sometimes lumped in with OA. But I think with this recent staking, we've kind of a clear picture now of what's OA and what's not OA.
Yeah, that was actually pretty fun. Like, I had an automated way of how to, like, I had a model of how to predict which addresses are like OA addresses. And my model was always like having many more addresses than anybody else's model. And I was like always thinking, I mean, I have my model and it seems to be much more than everybody else's. But now I got really the confirmation by the activity that my model was the closest to having. And now we see really clear signs, exactly what you said, which ones are DOA, because they have a very similar pattern of how they behave. And that makes me just like understand that, okay, my charts can show the user circulating supply very well over time, and I can rely on it.
So I have backed off on tracking the OA addresses separately, because there's no way for me to really be sure they really are real. So I appreciate that other people are doing it. I'm not doing it anymore. I mean, I to a certain extent, I have the older addresses, and I suppose if I really could figure it out, maybe it would be worthwhile to do it. So I applaud you for doing that, Ben. But I've kind of taken the tact of giving less, in terms of that part of it, less, visibility to the OA and the OA addresses. But of course, I can't get away from the fact that the OA is affecting the system, right? Right. So for me to say, hey, the OA doesn't matter. Well, hey, apparently it does. It just came in and did all these huge stakes and changed everything. But even though it is kind of like a system reset, standard use case, right, is still there. The product market fit's the same, hasn't changed. It's just that it's at a lower reward rate than I would like, but that is what it is, right? And I think that as we've been talking about, a lot of people have been talking about for weeks, the opportunity is huge in HEX. I mean, the ability to get more of it, it's very rare, right? You got to buy it off the market. There's 500 million. Sure, I can't go buy 500 million, but you know what? There's only 500 million, and some number like that.
Yeah, and we have many addresses that are here, many that are actually active, and later today I will actually show some general numbers. I prepared like some charts for newcomers to kind of like understand of how big the community is and things like that, but also interesting for people who already know my charts, just to see like the whole chart by itself. I have later a 15 minutes where I will show that. But back to the 4%, I think, for something mature, that's a really great yield. still you can get with safer financial instruments, higher yields currently on the market in the traditional finance sense. But I think there's a big chance that lower interest rates are coming in the whole world. And if those are going low, and they will go really low, I think, because inflation is kind of defeated for now. And I mean, almost. So if we get those lower rates, then 4% compared to, who knows, will it be a 1%? Will be a great yield, especially if you make it in a decentralized way. And from here on, the OA basically cannot really, lower it. So here only the market itself can lower it. And how would the market lower the interest rate from 4% down to 1%? By buying it up and staking it. So then you would get like a big price appreciation, most probably. Right. So 4%, quite a number that you will kind of definitely get.
I was kind of speculating too. I mean, a lot of this is speculation at this point, but we know that the base rate is about 1.5 now on both chains. I think Ethereum's a few points higher, but we know that we're going to compound up from that direction. And the OA staked most of its supply, so we kind of know where we're at now. And the only thing I thought about it, I don't think it could happen. But if the OA decides to buy more, it could buy more HEX and stake it too. I don't know if it would do that, but that would be another interesting dynamic that kind of crossed my mind the other day.
For sure. The other thing about HEX staking is that obviously you can stake Pulse or you stake Ethereum, but you have to validate. So you kind of do some other type of staking activity, as well as your, it is not really private. I mean, if some people who are technical, they know that you expose your IP address while you validate. So if you want to get really good yield and be actually private, then HEX is kind of like the go-to place. And that's not a little thing actually, but it's not really often mentioned. And as a lot of people will watch this who might be new to HEX and new to PulseChain, that is an interesting aspect. And because it's a Pulse conference, I also want to mention like HEX is still like kind of the biggest force on PulseChain. I mean, for me, I mean, in terms of community, in terms of opportunity, liquidity, I'm not sure how you think about HEX versus PulseChain, or you always think about it together because the liquidity is anyway bonded, right?
Yeah, they're definitely tied together. Go ahead, Dev. Sorry.
Yeah, no, sorry, you go.
I was just going to throw out there that HEX is consistently in the top 10 in terms of volume. Usually runs about twice as fast as Pulse, which is an indication that there's not enough of it for the demand. Just feeding into that.
Yeah, so one thing I'm kind of looking at is the HEX Pulse ratio and then also the EHEX PX ratio, and I find that very interesting to keep track of that every day. So I'm kind of curious of the panel's thoughts on the EX versus PX and where we can see that going in the next year or 12 months.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, hey, I have an answer for that, what I think. Tails, what do you think about that?
As far as EHEX go, I think there's an interesting dynamic now, because after Richard made that tweet that he did back then, where it caused all that chaos and the dumping of EHEX, when I think what was the payout per t-shirt, like over 50 that day. It was something huge. But what was interesting is that EHEX was also staked in the same way Pulse was. So that kind of indicates to me that there's still EHEX is still here. and it's gonna thrive, and it's gonna you know, we could debate if they'll ever reach parity or not, but we know it's not going away either.
Yeah. Well, I think, you know, exact parity is kind of a dream, but I do think you're going to see, right? Because that would be that it's too specific, right? It has to be exactly the same price. Could it happen? Sure. Johnny laid out some possibilities with that, but now that those possibilities aren't there anymore. But what we can look at is the LP setup and the you know, what the behavior has been of the stakers. Even though we talk a lot about emergency end staking, we have had it. We still got a lot of t-shirts, right? People have not capitulated on HEX, and you know, they're not adding as quickly, that's for sure, but they haven't capitulated on either of the hexes. And with the liquidity setup, HEX is probably going to overperform, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when the tweet happened, the EX's dead tweet went to like 1 to 10 or below that. Then the last couple of weeks or months has been around 1 to 4, 1 to 3, and then today I see it's 1 to 2.8. So we're slowly closing that gap each week, which I think is very interesting. That, you know, we're, even if we don't get to parity, if we get to 1 to 2, you know, I think that's pretty good for EX.
Yeah, because if you think about that too, like if we think HEX, you know, as far, because now that the inflation's cut, you know, people have to realize too, like when the OA staked all that HEX, that was pretty much the equivalent of like 2 Bitcoin halvings. You know, and it's going to take a little time for it to see that. You know, we're not going to see that overnight. I think, what was it, about 4 to 500% reduction roughly, but that's a pretty huge reduction. So, and now if we think PHEX can go to dollars, and it keeps this sort of ratio right now, if HEX is to hit $5, then why couldn't EHEX hit $1 or $2? That's kind of how I'm thinking.
Right. And I think from a percentage perspective, you know, from bottoms and whatnot, you'll see when I talk about the overperformance, it just has that ability to go up. Dip Catcher's in our chat, so shout out to him in that. Hey, yeah, you know, there's some real opportunity on the Ethereum side, because things got weird, right, with price and also with gas. We really didn't expect the gas. I never expected it to be cheap at this point to be transacting on Ethereum. And so you do have this theory about being closer to the money on Ethereum, that there are people who will discover the ecosystem with green candles through HEX, and that may be the EHEX, right? And so if that type of thing happens, or we see you know, the big run up in Ethereum that many hope will happen, right? That will first affect EHEX before it moves over onto the PulseChain. Now, maybe it'll be so fast, maybe I won't know the difference. But again, with the liquidity set up, with the prices potentially skyrocketing during some sort of a run up, yeah, you could see that overperformance.
Also, I think for like new onboards or people who just hear about HEX today, you know, the first landing spot is probably going to be Uniswap on Ethereum. And they're not going to find PulseChain right away. So the first kind of place to buy HEX is going to be on Ethereum. So I think that could be bullish for EX on the long run.
The other thing, which is actually quite great, and again, it's a Pulse conference and it's a HEX panel. Both hexes are on PulseChain. So like if we get that range where the bull market goes full bananas and we have those high fees on Ethereum, and people want to buy EHEX because it performed so well, you can buy EHEX on PulseChain as well. So you can buy it cheaply, and this is actually crucial. So, and maybe not even thought of. So you have a really good asset that is on 2 chains traded. One, it's getting really expensive to transact on, but on PulseChain you can, you know, for pennies get into it, and then maybe even stake it in the future when fees are lower. So like EHEX has that opportunity, and EHEX has that bridge risk, but the bridge risk is not that big anymore, because with time we see that the bridge between Ethereum and PulseChain which is connecting the chains, is actually working flawlessly and was never hacked and nothing happened to it. So the bridge risk for the HEX is at this point very, very low. Hey, Max, you're back.
I'm back. That's the bad news. The bad news is final time almost up, but we got about 4 minutes before RG3 comes in here and tears everyone a new one, as far as a new way of looking at DeFi and why you should all be super, super happy. But last what is that? What we got? 180 seconds or so. What's good? What do you want to leave people with as far as the HEX token? I know Ben Sierra is going to be on a little bit later, and to talk about some analytics as well. But what do people need to know?
Well, I'll say this. I've been saying it every stream, every show. I understand why people are fading HEX staking, and I think it's a mistake.
Agreed.
And, and I understand them. I mean, it's hard to argue with people. You got to push the I believe button. That someday green can just come, but I think when they come, those who have been staked will be rewarded the greatest. It doesn't mean you guys can't take your swing trades. That'll be successful as well.
Not the sell button, the I believe button.
The I believe.
Yeah, I think HEX is not going anywhere. We have it on 2 chains now. We have all these derivatives as well with this extra utility. Our communists, Hedron, Icosa, all of these things add extra utility. I think even Ben, you have a derivative as well. So I think it's a whole ecosystem built around HEX. So it's going to be bullish for the next few years.
Not communism for HEX. We have communism, or communists. If you community, yeah.
Community.
Yeah. Not that Huey said it. I just make sure everyone hears it correctly. It is not communist coin. I heard so much in the beginning. That's funny.
Communist coin.
Tells, you think we get to $4 HEX?
No, I'm super bullish. I think we go higher than that, but I think too, as the price rises, people, the APY will, go up with the higher price, and you can still stake, 15 years. I'm still staking 15 years. I'm not going to stop. So, as that supply dwindles, and if there is a increase in stakers going along, you could really see a supply shock.
Yeah. HEX is the father of trustless yield. And you can get it at the best place in the whole blockchain world, which is PulseChain. Even the Ethereum version, you can get it on PulseChain. I think it even has higher liquidity on PulseChain. Correct me if I'm wrong, Crispy. So
Crispy's like, they're telling me that's correct.
Yeah.
All right. So, the father of trustless yield will not be faded by the world.